Welcome to the Centric Behavioral Health podcast, where we talk all things mental health and substance abuse. If you or a loved one is struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues, please call our caring team now at 866-271-8480. Again, that number is 866-271-8480. To start your healing journey today, this podcast shares recovery journeys and mental health discussions. If you find this content uncomfortable, please feel free to click away and take a breather. Our goal is to share our experiences and let you know that you are not alone.
So, welcome. And this is actually our very first recording of the Centric podcast. So, yay! We can so this week's topic is all about breaking the stigma. So, all things breaking, talking about specifically with mental health. What are the current stigmas we're seeing now? And how far we've come, because I know that, what we've experienced when we were younger, or even when our parents have experienced when they were younger, it was a lot different than it is now. And there are still some things that we do need to talk about and need to kind of break that, where we're having a lot more of a conversation on mental health. So that's exactly why we're here on this podcast. We're here to share all things mental health. But without further ado, so my name is Danny. I'm the social media manager, and I'm here with
Paula Cook. I'm a primary therapist at Sanctuary Mental Health.
and an awesome one at that. Can you say just a little bit about yourself, like a little bit about your history with mental health and why you chose to be a therapist?
Okay, so diving right in.
Yeah.
So a little bit of history. I am a retired military police officer, and the reason why I got into mental health was because I was going for my forensic degree after I got out of the military, after I retired. Um, and I fell in love with forensic psychology. And from there, I just kind of fell in love with psychology in general. And I saw that there was a problem, a big stigma actually, for getting help with mental health, especially in the military, particularly. And I'm like, this is not okay. Why do we give these classes on getting help, but yet we're like, don't do that, or you're going to get demoted, or you're going to get, stalled, you're going to get X, Y, and Z. It's like almost like it's punished. So that's why I got into the mental health field, is because they encourage us to get help if we're injured. If someone's walking around with a broken leg, they're not going to continue to walk around with a broken leg. You're going to go to the doctor. Same thing with your brain. Your brain controls your whole body. So if your mental health is not in sync, your body is not going to be in sync. That's where it kind of like was an epiphany moment for me, like, oh, hey, a lot of chronic physical issues come from mental health. So that's what really kind of dove me down that hole.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting with mental health, because I know that a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm just sad, or oh, I'm kind of anxious here and there. But, sometimes these things build up. And just as you're saying, like, mental health is just as important, if not equal to exactly your physical health. And it does so much, like what stress does to the body. Like, can you give an example of, maybe a time in your life where you were like, you were dealing with mental health issues yourself, and then you kind of saw it like translate to your own body?
Oh, absolutely. So this is gonna sound really kind of weird, but I found out I had to have surgery again on my shoulder because I had torn it, and the anxiety that I incurred just from the thought of having to have another surgery sent me over like the edge almost. and it made my arm actually hurt even worse because I tensed. So I had a torn rotator cuff, and so I tensed more, which caused more pain physically, and now mentally I'm having more pain, and I'm like panicking over having to have surgery. So it was like a direct link. And when I recognized that, well, okay, stop, need to calm down, they're going to fix it. Yes, it's going to hurt, but in the long run, it's going to do better and you're going to be able to do more things. So it caused a panic attack where my physical health caused me to have a panic attack. So, yeah, it's incredible how the mind works.
Yeah. And so now that you work in mental health, how are you, it's like you're kind of like that doctor now. Like you get to analyze people, you get to diagnose people, and then you get to like give them treatment. How has it been working in like the mental health sector?
It's been great. I love it. I do suffer sometimes with imposter syndrome myself because, I'm still technically a mental health patient, if you want to consider that. I think everybody is. Even if we deny it, you're still, everybody has struggles. Everybody does. But as far as me being in the field itself, I feel like I am actually helping people because I understand what they're going through and I can get on that level with them. And sometimes just being heard and understood can really help a person. Just like, oh, I'm not crazy, because nobody is actually crazy. It's just you're having a struggle. Even if it's psychosis, you're just having a struggle. It's chemistry. We just got to get you through it. It's not, I don't like the word crazy. Like, people are not crazy, they're struggling. Just like if you were to have a gunshot wound, you're not going to put a band-aid on it. You're going to do something to stop the bleeding. Same thing with the mental health. It just depends on the severity. If people are thinking about getting help, you should probably do it. Because if you're thinking about it, then it's already there. Okay, basically, I was saying as I got off topic, but I do love being in the mental health field. So, because I feel like I'm actually able to empathize with people who are truly struggling and have had a lot of different childhood traumas. And
Yeah.
that's really the biggest thing I see in the mental health field is that you were saying something about, the stigma of our grandparents and our family, parents didn't talk about it. Well, that's part of the problem. That's generational trauma right there. And now that we're finally talking about things, we're seeing that there is a lot of trauma that children have gone through that are now our age and adults. And it's not okay. I mean, it's okay to not be okay, but what has happened is not okay. And in order for us to progress as human beings, we need to be understanding that our mental health has just as much of an impact on our physical health because our brains were controlled by our brains.
Exactly. We're just like walking with like our heads in our meat sacks, if you want to say it, and
Exactly.
controlling the way that we do. And it's kind of crazy because it's, one day you're thinking to yourself, I just want to get a burger for lunch, but then the next day you're like, and I feel like we've all gone through a struggle, even if it's, you have stress for like a test or something like that to, having a total mental breakdown for some of I mean, and sometimes it is a small thing. I know I've experienced plenty of like anxiety attacks for even just the smallest little things. And it's in those moments where I really, really appreciate having a therapist, or really, really appreciate having, a mental health professional. Because it's not just like my mom who's telling me this advice. It's not like my friend who I've known and I trust them and I love them, but it's also just like getting the help that I need, just like you say, like a doctor,
Mhm.
going to the doctor and saying, this is what I have, this is what I'm going through. Give
Mhm.
me advice that you know professionally, that you've studied, that you know, that you can tell me as like a third party person to tell me like, okay, and these are the steps that we're going to take together. And I really appreciate like having that. I feel like after going through it and still having my therapist to this day, like there's nothing like it, because it's just like having that one person where I can just kind of complain and just like let it go and get that. And but like my question is also now is kind of like, as a therapist, kind of like a professional gossiper, I guess, like someone to really like take it all in. How do you self-regulate on that? Because I can only imagine like how much that dumping onto you causes you, and then how do you kind of self-regulate that?
So some things that I do for myself to help regulate, because I mean it is, I mean it's secondhand trauma in a sense, that we get from our clients, but it's what we're trained to do first off. And second, what I do is I do my own therapy. Like I'm in therapy for myself on top of it. Alpha therapist, again, we don't know who that is. So, but I do personal things, like I love to mow the lawn. It's very therapeutic for me to be in, take care of my lawn and just ground myself in that. And at the end of the day, I understand that I am helping these people. Their problems are not necessarily my problems, and I need to leave that at home, or leave that not at home. I need to leave that at work. And when I go home, I take a shower immediately because it helps wash the day away. And I suggest doing that for everybody that comes home from work, is wash it off and reset yourself, not just for the mental health field, but all fields. Wash it off, get set, and have some fun with your family. Connect with whatever you need to connect with, your animals, whatever it is. Just ground yourself, because we don't work just to live. Like it's not just like taking care of yourself in a grounding way, connecting with family and stuff like that. It's very important that we connect, even if you feel like, if you're at the point where you feel like I don't have the energy to do this, you need to seek help. Like you need to talk to a therapist, because at that point you're not able to do it on your own, and you need another source of an outlet, or you need coping skills, or maybe there's some trauma there that has started to bubble up to the surface from your childhood. And at that point, I strongly suggest that people get help, because trauma has a way of rearing its ugly head 30-40 years down the line. You can only suppress it for so long.
And you've
It's a
actually
nasty beast.
mentioned, oh yeah, and you've mentioned how like some people, it's like as soon as they're actually in a therapist's office, it's almost like we're past the point of no return, or we've gotten to a point where it's really bubbled over. Breaking the stigma, should people come a little bit prior to that breaking point, or what is a good, like a really good point in which I'm like, I need to be in therapy. I might be a normal person having normal problems, but it's like I've seen some people where it's like, I'm going through hell and now I'm going to get a therapist. So what would you say on that?
Okay. So I actually, I think you should check in like you do with your primary care doctor. Preventative health, preventative mental health at that. I think you should check in like every 3 months with a therapist, quite honestly, just to check in, see how you're doing. Hey, you know what? I got these stressors going on. And then let them evaluate from there. Like, okay, maybe you need a few more sessions. Let's kind of work through these problems that you might be having. That's my own personal perspective on it, but that's how we're going to break the stigma, is normalizing, hey, I got to vent this out, because if I don't vent this out, I'm going to blow up, or I'm going to shut down, or something is going to happen, and you're going to take it out on your kids, on your parents, on your brothers or sisters, whoever. It's before we get to that blow up point, we should check in, just do like you would with your primary care doctor. It's preventative medicine.
So we were talking about medications and kind of like the stigma around medications. I understand that some people like to be natural, some people like to take medications to, figure out if there is like that needed boost to like at least get them out of their house and get them through the day. So, could we like let's talk about, maybe some of the stigmas around people who are going through treatment, whether they are like seeing someone
Okay.
like you and taking medication. Like, have you seen anybody, kind of having a negative connotation to that?
Yes, actually, one of the clients here
Oh, currently.
doesn't like to take medicine, wants to try the holistic approach. However, they are, uh, they need to take the meds, because it causes a spiral if it doesn't happen. And we've reinforced that and they see that. And it's unfortunate, but I understand that some people want to take the holistic approach, where I don't see a problem with that. But when there's a genetic issue, like again, like I said, bipolar disorder, you have to be able to balance those chemicals. And sometimes it takes a little adjusting because everybody is different. So what if you're taking medication, it shouldn't make you feel like you are necessarily like crazy or anything like that. Like, I'll be quite honest with my own self. I'm medicated. I am. Most therapists are medicated in some way, shape, or form. So let's burst that bubble. Okay.
My number
Sorry.
one, let's say everybody, most therapists are medicated.
Yes. And it's okay, because there's so much anxieties and there's so much depression, and it's a hard field, and B, like, we got into the field because a lot of us have our own problems and we want to help people who have those same problems. So we have navigated and found our way through, and we want to help navigate and help them find their way through. Most therapists will not disclose that they have mental health problems, but I'm open book. I don't mind. So, but
That's
as far as the medication goes, um, really trying to get rid of that stigma. I mean, own it. I mean, if you have a problem with struggling with your mental health and you are actively seeking treatment and you are actively doing these things, you're doing more than somebody who is too afraid to admit it. It takes a very strong person to admit that they are struggling with their mental health because of the stigmas that we have today.
exactly.
So,
Are there any other like stigmas that you've seen kind of bubbling up, especially for someone who's like just trying to seek therapy, trying to seek treatment? Is there anything, that you kind of see, what is it, kind of normalized now?
in the South, definitely not. It's not. Sorry, guys, but a lot of people like to try and push through. It's fine. It is what it is. It's in the past. Just get over it. Never heard those things before? No, that's where that trauma rears its ugly head. And typically, it's people that say those kind of things that are the most anxious and have the most anger because they have trauma that is unresolved. But they're like, well, why go over it again? It's in the past. I can't change it. No, that's true. You cannot change it, but what you can change is your emotional response to the situation.
I see early in my experience, I know that like, well, I come from like a Hispanic background, and I love how like there has been a joke that comes around where a lot of people will say like, Hispanic mothers, they'll believe in like brujeria, they'll believe in like everything else under the sun besides their son or daughter having depression.
Yes.
And it's so true. It is so, so true in that community. And I know even like, and I don't want to put religion under the bus, but I know that a lot of like, people who are religious, a lot of the times they'll kind of like push it towards like, no, 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 like whatever they believe in, it's fine. We'll be taken care of. I don't have it. I'm fine. Absolutely.
So that's why in the mental health field, we actually separate religion and mental health, because it can have a detriment to, the mental health of that individual. And even cultural influences can have a detriment to the individual. Me traveling around the world and seeing all kinds of cultures. I've seen just about every culture you can imagine, quite honestly. And there's a lot of problems out there, especially for like women. And just stuff it down and push through. So with that, it's trying to think of how the best way to say this. So the religion aspect definitely does cause trauma. There's specifically a thing called religious trauma for people that we have to treat, that I have treated quite a few people here, like cult trauma, things like that, where it gets to the extreme. And that can be extremely damaging because it's an idealism. It's been such ingrained into them, and then you're having to basically rip that apart and be like, hey, this is reality here. And it can really damage somebody. The religious aspect can. I'm not saying all religion is wrong, okay? It's just some religions, especially some, like when it skews off, some offshoots can become cult-like, and it damages people. So it can cause a lot of a lot of self-image issues, especially a lot of self-image issues. I know the Hispanic culture as well. I know that can be very difficult. It's as well as the African American community. That can be very difficult as well, seeking mental health treatment. I know that's definitely a big stigma there. And I treat, quite a few people of the community. And I understand it. I do understand it. I've never gone through it, but I understand it, and I try to help the best way that I can.
Like the community, of course, like actually July is it's minority like mental health awareness month.
Yes.
And I think that it's a wonderful time to really discuss about like those kind of stigmas that do pass through all these different cultures, because I mean I can only talk about my own culture and my own experience. But I think that like in general, I don't know if statistically more white folk they go to like therapy versus more people of color. I'm not so sure the statistics of it, but like I think that like that's another stigma that's kind of like out in the ether, because I think that it is very difficult to get these groups of people to really just admit like I have a problem, I'm not okay, I'm gonna go seek therapy.
That's actually something that I am writing about in my doctorate, in my dissertation. So it's the life expectancy of women who have experienced comprehensive sexual education versus women who have not, who have only learned abstinence only. And it also includes, like the mental health side of things, because comprehensive sexual education is mental health, period. Like full send mental health. It's not just about, that stuff, but it is with my research that I have found, it is shown me that minority groups do not get the education that they need or deserve when it comes to mental health. They are actually deprived of it in the education systems, and it's stigmatized for them, for a lot of the people, like the inner city kids and stuff like that. I'm an inner city kid myself, so I grew up in Southern California, so SoCal, just shout out. So that's right, West Coast, Best Coast. So yes, it is very much stigmatized. Even when I was growing up, like we just didn't talk about it, and sucked it up and drive on. And it's sad, but it's the truth. And hopefully we can start defeating some of that stigma and allow people the grace and the kindness to themselves. Really, it's being kind to themselves to seek help. Yes, what a lot of things that I'm seeing come back to the root of childhood trauma. It could be, neglect, if you've been beat with a chancla, or or
down by some, yeah.
Something, you get hit with the spoon, you get hit with the brush, whatever. That is abuse, period. And people don't see it as that, but it is abuse. And I know some people are going to want to argue that, but these are facts.
Yeah.
If somebody is having intrusive memories and thoughts about, like, oh crap, this is the time when my mom beat my ass, and it causes a physical response, guess what? That's called trauma response. So that's
I think something that was like kind of like dawning on me just now is if I can remember in this like delicious conversation we're having, I think it's more just like about not just like people of color, but I think that's also like in general breaking the stigma. The best way to break a stigma is to just talk about it. And I feel like sometimes it's like we just need to muster up that courage or just seek out someone trustworthy. Because I think also it is hard sometimes if they're, if you have a parent at home that's maybe not as trustworthy or is the reason why you have trauma. There could be a sibling, a friend, or even, a professional, but it's like just mustering up that courage, I think, and just opening up and having that conversation. I know for myself, like sometimes it's easier to talk about sex than money sometimes because money is hard to talk about, but I feel like knowing financial literacy is extremely important. And aside from that as well, mental health, so just letting go of all that, being vulnerable, letting go of all those, like, oh my God, like, what are they going to think about me or whatever, just letting that out the door and just having that conversation, and that's the bravest thing that I think that any one of us could do. So like, how, like in your experience, how have you been able to kind of like break out of that cage that you were in and just kind of speak to someone that you trust?
Ooh, let me go back. So honestly, the first time I had to go to therapy, I was forced to go to therapy from the military. To be honest, they made me go to therapy. I can share details on that if you want. It's up to you. I don't care. So the first time was I didn't want to, right? But I was, again, ordered to by the military because, it happens. It was either that or I get an Article 15. So I went to therapy. I know it sounds bad, but the situation was I just came home from Iraq. Okay. And I was having a discussion. We were all having a discussion that should not have been had. And it was a guy that was being homophobic, speaking about people. And that was back in the days of don't ask, don't tell. Okay. So I had that on top of it. And then he said something. I don't quite remember what he said to me, but he said something and I hit him with a chair. So
I'll do it.
I'll do it. My explosion came out. And so I was forced into going to therapy. And the one thing, even though I didn't want to go, the one thing that I did take away is she gave me a rock and I still actually have a rock. I pick up a rock to this day and I will sit there and I will rub it until it becomes smooth to get out that activation. They didn't call it activation energy back then. It's just feeling the texture and grounding myself whenever I become too angry. So I did actually take away something. I did, even though I didn't want to go there, I did have a small takeaway. And the fact that I had that small takeaway, I was evolving more. And after my last deployment, I was like, okay, I'm really struggling here. I don't want this to bubble again. And that's when I went and got help. and I voiced that to my commander and my platoon sergeant, and help. Like I'm at a point where I need to talk to somebody because I'm so angry about so many different things. And I spoke to my commander and I was like, hey, I need help. And I don't want to be angry like this anymore. So got me the help that I needed. And I've been in therapy on and off ever since. I've been in therapy consistently now for the past 7 years. So just working on a lot of my own childhood trauma on top of military trauma. So there's a little complex PTSD going on there.
Whole other can of worms that I can only imagine. I mean, I feel like
Yes.
we should have like another separate like veterans episode speaking
Oh,
solely
absolutely.
because I feel like there are so many veterans out there where it's like I know I'll never understand that struggle. But thank you so much for your service. And thank you to everyone who is listening who is a veteran. I mean, truly, like to go through everything that you went through and you're still going through the other side, you're going to therapy, you're doing your best. I mean, that's amazing. It's truly just to like experience so much anxiety, so much like, I mean, literally throwing a chair at someone and just, thinking that everything is like hopeless. But I think that it's just wonderful now. I mean, look at you now. Like, it's like seeing night and day. And I think
It is.
it's
I'm
incredible.
one of the calmest people around.
Oh, yeah. She's very chill, everyone. She really is.
It's just I had a lot of unresolved things that I needed to get out, and therapy did that for me. So if you're having these anger feelings and it's just like, oh, I just can't get this out, I just want to punch a hole in the wall, you probably need to talk to somebody, and that's okay. And it's okay to be angry about it. It's
Don't actually
okay to
punch the
be,
hole. Like, don't punch
yeah,
the
don't punch the wall. Don't do that. But if you're feeling that, or if you're feeling, just super down and depressed, even, it's two sides of the same coin, honestly, from the same emotion. That anger and that depression, it really does. It comes from the same emotion.
What can you say
So,
about because I think the culture now, I mean, everybody's online, everybody's like on social I'm chronically online. Like I love being like on social media. Of course, can you see this is literally my job.
yeah.
But I think like, what are the stigmas that you've seen online that maybe we should, bring to the surface and say, hey, this is going on. But I think that now having a conversation about this, it's kind of like for me personally, like I've seen a lot of people like, we struggle a lot with our self-image. We struggle a lot with FOMO, people going out and doing their, showing off the most amazing things. But
Yep.
in what ways is it like great that social media is around and in what ways are social media really harming us?
So we'll start with the bad first, and then we'll end on the good, just because I like to end on positives with those kind of things. So what I've seen with the social media is the more connected we become, the more disconnected we actually are with each other. So we're connected more to these things than we are to being in person. Um, when you're with a significant other, we have become addicted to our phones. It is actually an addiction. It's something that I have recognized as well. And I actually will put my phone up when I'm not on call, and I'll leave it in my room on the charger so I can spend time with my family. So I'm not always constantly looking at my phone.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really the disconnect that has happened instead of that being here present with another individual physically is the biggest problem I've seen. And when people are online trying to seek that, they're not going to get that because it is not a physical thing. We are physical beings. We are very much so. Humans are, we are a species that needs to be connected, and I'm actually very worried about the kids that were in like their vital years of growth with COVID when that first hit, and they were isolated. They were isolated from their peers, and that is a big growing point for them. And I have a feeling we're going to see a big influx of mental health patients because they're going to go out into the workforce and not know how to interact in a healthy way because they're so used to being disconnected and online, disconnected from reality, but jacked in or connected into a computer or a screen or something there. But the positive side of it is we have telehealth. We have all these mental health things that we can do with our clients who are, miles, 3-4 hours away from us. And if you're licensed in another state, you can practice in that state too. So that's a positive side of it, is that we can, even doctors can see patients online. And that's something that we saw during the pandemic, that the telehealth came about. So, I mean, there are some positives to it. There absolutely is. I just see a lot of, yes, that people will say things online that they would not otherwise say to a person's face, because it's almost dehumanizing us. It has dehumanized us.
Yeah.
On the other side of that phone, on the other side of that screen, there is a person there. And
I think this is just, this is starting to get
a lot of
crunchy here. I know. It's like, why
okay.
just,
I
okay,
wait.
all right. See, it's like now you say like, okay, you're waiting, and like now it's like, oh, you sound great.
This is the other frustrating part, right? We're
Yeah.
trying to reach people in a positive way, and it's just being frustrating, but it's okay. But technology, gotta love it. No, I'm just saying, like, a lot of people don't realize that on the other side of a screen is a person,
Exactly.
and they're saying these hateful things to a person, which can cause a spiral for that person's mental health. So
That's why everyone
that's the negative side. And right. And then there's also the positive side, like what we're doing now. We can reach people the way we need to reach them, and hopefully they'll see this podcast, and those who are questioning if they need help, they actually reach out and get help.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like what I'd love to see with this podcast is like, we're having these conversations and someone out there is like, oh my gosh, I do need help. Or, oh, I have a question. Like, let me ask a question, call in. And that's where we get people to really just kind of like get away from that like smoke and mirror of almost just being behind the curtain when you're in social media. One way, and I think it's also kind of difficult now, like I've seen, is like making friends when you're chronically online. I think that, maybe it's just like, oh, just trying to reach out and find somebody to like see out in the wild is a little bit different now after COVID and after seeing this generation just kind of like grow up only almost exclusively just like online.
Yeah.
So, I mean, come on, guys, let's be nice to each other.
Yes. Yes. So absolutely. And it honestly makes me worried about some of the people that are developing, because it develops antisocial behavior, and it can cause severe outbursts of anger once they do socialize in person and they're not getting the response that they thought they were going to get, and then they go into that spiral. It's very concerning, actually, with some of these kids that are solely online. And with the younger, I see my younger nephews who are like 9 and like 7 now. They are attached to their tablets, so they're not allowed to have them at my house. No, we're gonna have some fun and play board games.
I'm the same. I gotta put this thing away sometimes.
Mhm,
Even with like the sleeping, like, you're just doom scrolling over and over again.
mhm.
But getting out of these kind of habits is like it's the difficult part. I think like breaking habits is super hard, but it's not impossible.
No, absolutely not.
Exactly. And like someone who is chronically online, do you have like any advice? Like, should I just go to a therapist? How would you deal with that?
Somebody who's glued to being online?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay, yeah, so if you feel like honestly, it's an addiction. If you feel like it's become a problem and it's interfering with your life, absolutely go talk to a therapist, because what are you lacking? What are you lacking in your life that you're seeking either validation from some random person online, or what are you lacking in your life that you're seeking, some type of emotional connection online that you can't otherwise do in person? What are you feeling about yourself in person? Like, is it a body image issue? Is it something that's going on about yourself that you've been told by your close family members, friends, whoever, that you're seeking something online? I absolutely encourage you to go speak to a therapist, to a specialist, a mental health specialist, to help you find that out, because that's no way to live. It's not healthy for you, and it's not healthy for those around you. And you deserve to live the best life that you can.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice for anyone out there who is seeking treatment today?
If you're seeking treatment, keep doing it. Keep it up. If you're thinking about doing it, do it. that's, that's honestly it. If you're struggling in treatment, sometimes it will get harder before it gets better. Just like with surgery. It's basically just mental surgery. When a surgeon goes in, sometimes that pain, that excruciating pain after you wake up, it's going to be there for a few days, and then you're going to get into physical therapy, and then things are going to start getting stronger and better as you progress. Same thing with your mental health. You go to that therapist, guess what? They're going to target a whole bunch of stuff, and it's going to be excruciating, but then they're going to give you tools and therapy to get through it. The mental therapy, it's like physical therapy, to get through these things that you have struggled with most of your life. For most people,
That's awesome.
I very much correlate physical and mental health together.
I
Like,
mean,
I don't see the difference.
exactly. You're a doctor. You've, gone through school to really like study this stuff about the mind, about psychology, about, all this connection and how it really, at the end of the day, of course, we are walking meat bags with our on the top of our head, and we're the control unit. So
Yes, it tells our hearts to beat, it tells our lungs to breathe without even thinking about having to do it. So if that throws and you start having that deep breath, that fast, rapid heart rate, guess what your brain is doing? It's telling it to do it faster. Why? Because you're responding to your environment. So that's where that comes into play. So
and also like so let's say you're in treatment. Is it okay for someone to, I mean, I guess breaking the stigma, talking about it to your peers, um, is it a topic that we could talk about like, oh, hey, I'm in therapy, like talking that to like someone who, is in your circle or something like that. How can you say that to someone like your parent, your friend, really opening up that conversation about like, I'm in therapy and I need support. How do
Mhm.
you, as like as a patient, how can you like maybe reach out for other people to support you? Should it be, or should it be like a quiet thing?
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, for my own self, honestly, like, I have therapy, actually Tuesdays, every Tuesday, for myself. And I make my family aware, don't bother me during this time because I'm in therapy and I'm working on myself so I can be a better person, so I can do better things. And there's some objection to me being in therapy from family members, but honestly, I don't care because it's about me and I know I need it. Otherwise, I get very angry. And they've seen that part of me. The people who I know who have seen that, who have who support me in that. That's vital, is having, even if you don't have a support system in your family, your friends, even if they see that, hey, yeah, you probably need some help. If they're aware, like, yeah, I'm getting it, ask them, hey, like, yeah, can you encourage me a little bit? I feel like I'm like not wanting to go, and it's just so hard. I'm dreading it. I don't want to go do this. It hurts. Bring up these old memories, bring up all these things in general. Sometimes a little moral support is definitely beneficial. So don't hesitate to talk about it. You don't have to like tell them what you're going through and what your traumas are, because we don't want to trauma dump, right? So you don't have to necessarily tell them like what you're going through, but the fact that you have someone in your corner could be very beneficial. That's just outside, that's part of your core. It can be very beneficial.
I found that for me, like I was trying to find a therapist because I had been in a really, really toxic relationship, my last relationship. Um, and it wasn't, and I got to the point where it was like the boiling point, and it's like, you know what, I'm gonna get therapy. And it wasn't until that point where I'm literally like I'm breaking down every day practically. My parents are both concerned for me, my sister's crying out for me and everything. And it was like that, and it was very hard in that time. Um, because I felt like I needed to hold everything in because it's like, no, 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 I have a problem. I can't share this. I don't want to like, trauma dump it, or I don't want other people to be concerned about me. Like I'm more of an independent person. So
Mm-hmm.
it just turned into that. And then, but it got to the point where my mom experienced me having a mental breakdown in the car. And that was like one of the big turning points where like my family got involved, my friends got involved. And after getting involved with a therapist, I can tell you now that like they saved my life. So it's like things like that, experiences like that. I mean, they're shitty as hell. I think we can all agree that, they're all very shitty to like go through those moments, but I'm so grateful to like have my support system now and being able to share like, hey, I'm going through something, I'm not feeling okay. I'm going through therapy, I'm getting medicated, all of these things that happen. But it wasn't until, I mean, in my case, it wasn't until they literally saw me breaking down. So
Right.
I wish that I had spoken about it a little bit earlier, but I think that's, why we're having these conversations.
Right. Right. And they showed concern for you before you sought treatment, right? So
Yeah.
they were showing some concern. I'm gonna kind of pick off that if you don't mind. So
Oh
I
yeah,
can
no, we can have a therapy session right here.
I want to pick off that. So you didn't want to be a bother or a hindrance to other people. And that's very common for people who are struggling. So if you're not wanting to be a bother or a hindrance for other people, people are already seeing it. They're already concerned. Okay, so if you don't want people to be concerned about you, guess what? They already are. So you should probably just go ahead and get the help. Okay.
Might as well just say it because they're already seeing
Just do it.
it.
Right.
And it's interesting because also like, I mean, I see this happened like a year ago, and it's kind of incredible also with the mental health thing because my face, I was like covered in acne. It was like covered in this like stress acne.
Yep.
My face was super puffy. Like I looked pale. Like I was like everything in my body did not look right.
Yes.
And exactly like you're saying, like how the
The
mind
mind.
does so much. I mean, like I had IBS, which is like huge correlation towards like mental health and your gut. And
Yes,
so,
that's that polyvagal nerve right there.
so what?
It's called the polyvagal nerve.
Ooh.
It actually, it's a direct thing that disrupts the stomach. I call it anxiety-induced, poo, but
It's so raw and it's so incredible. But it's incredible how like, that was me just a year ago. And then now I'm here and we're still healing because healing takes time. And
yes,
oh boy, no one talks about, I think that's another topic we can talk about probably another episode is healing process. Like no one tells you how wishy-washy that stuff gets,
it is not linear.
not linear. It is an ugly, messy, messy
Yes,
process.
sometimes yes, absolutely. We could definitely elaborate on that a lot.
Yeah.
So
But I think that, with breaking the stigma, just as we're talking now, it's more just like, having the courage to speak about these things to people is such a strong trait to have for someone to be able to be vulnerable. But I think it's also another thing for other people to have a little bit more empathy towards other people.
yes.
Because I feel like with my friends, sometimes I'm like, you can tell me everything, I'm here to help you. But I'm also the type of person who wants to like solve your issues right away. So I think it's like maybe I should like be like, no, 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 just like seek a therapist, like that kind of stuff. But you know, having that as like just being open with someone and at least being like, oh, hey, like, yeah, I've been through that too. Or, I haven't been through that, but, acknowledge that your feelings are completely valid. And I
Mhm,
think just listening to that
mhm.
is healing all on its own. Like just hearing someone say your feelings are valid.
Yeah.
But
I've kind of simplified that into kindness, being kind to yourself and being kind to others. Because if you try to practice that on a day-to-day basis, that kindness, like you don't know what somebody is going through, even the stranger. If you just practice simple kindness, a simple act of kindness, to yourself, to others. If you're feeling anger, you're like, okay, I'm feeling this anger. I'm out in public. Why am I feeling this anger? Instead of exploding on that person, be like, hey, I'm sorry. I don't mean to come off as hostile. This is kind of what I'm going through right now. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this. That right there can be a big breaker for somebody. You're like, oh my God, I'm not actually a horrible human being. So, because they could be thinking they're a horrible human being, they just upset you, and now they're just getting attacked because they're a terrible person. So
and it's not, and it's
uh,
hopefully it's not the case that we're gonna see like some viral video of someone freaking out. Like no, we're not gonna be
yeah.
getting. But it's I feel like a lot of times people are just kind of like in their own headspace.
Yes.
A lot of times with my anxiety as well, it's just like thinking, oh my God, I'm the issue, I'm the problem. Somebody's gonna get mad at me or something like that. And yeah, just like having that conversation where it's like, hey, like I'm going through something, I'm not okay. Like, let's take it easy. Let's, calm the situation down and just have that open and honest conversation with people, even if it's just like a barista. I don't want to dump on my barista, but like, it's like
Yeah.
you don't want to have that, but it's good to be able to say things like that, to be saying it like in a calm manner, and then having someone receive it and also kind of match that energy.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's just kindness. Really, we just got to be kind to each other.
Kind to yourself and kind to other people.
That's right. You got to love yourself first before you can love others too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
Let me see.
Because we're often our biggest critics. So,
No, you're telling me. You're telling me that's one of my like affirmations that I keep forgetting to tell myself. Like I'm a good person and I'm nice and I'm nice and I can I'm better and that's also like with the imposter syndrome, it's like I'm better than what I think I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get told quite often that I'm an amazing therapist and all these other things, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
My brain is like, you sure you're talking about the right person? Like,
Sure.
me?
What? No.
Actually, this does remind me of like I saw somewhere, I don't maybe I could be TikTok or social because again I am chronically online, but there was a video that mentioned that the way that we have to treat ourselves is like imagine yourself being locked up in a cage
Mhm.
and you have to take care of that person. It's like how do you treat that person? Do you speak to that person with, authority, with like anger, with like hatred towards that person who's locked up in a cage? Or do you nurture that person? Do you, see like the potential in that person, the kindness, like do you love that person?
Mhm.
Um, and I think that like picturing myself almost like in a cage in my own brain has
Mhm.
somewhat helped me think about, okay, wait, no, I have to love myself. Like
You
it's
do.
it's not easy.
Mhm.
But I think that just sometimes it's like an imaginary thing. Like people who are just visual learners, like you got to think about like
You
how to
gotta really visualize that, yeah.
fix that. Um, so yeah, where am I going with this? I just feel like I have like a like list of things, but I also feel like we've got a good amount of content here
Mhm.
for the first podcast. So I think I don't know, maybe we'll have like a good little like closer, or if you have anything else to add, like please.
No, I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I think this is good. I mean, if people, like, again, like I said, if people are thinking about getting help, if you've already thought it, then do it. Like, that's Nike, I guess.
Do it. Or even
Just do
like,
it.
or even someone who's like, I don't need therapy, like I'm normal, I'm fine.
There
Like,
is no normal.
hey,
Hey,
there you go.
people, there is no normal.
And I think like that's the beauty of it is like I feel like we should all just think of that way. Like there is no normal, there's no crazy, there is no if, ands, or buts. We're human.
No, there's not. I mean, there is no normal. And if someone says, "Oh no, I'm normal," I honestly question that person.
Like, or well, because I'm like, I love like SpongeBob. Like, it reminds me of like that episode where he's like smooth and he's like, "Hi, I'm normal."
Mhm.
It's like,
It's like, what?
who is that? In what world is that a person?
Mhm.
I think that we're like, as humans, we're just like these messy,
Yes,
complicated beings.
we are.
And you know what? It's like one person can be going through the absolute worst time of their lives versus someone who's going through an amazing growth period in their lives. And, they could be the best of friends, the worst of enemies.
Yeah,
Regardless, they're human.
right. That's right.
So yeah, I think that we'll just leave it at that. Or maybe like I'm thinking about like how to close this thing.
Be kind to yourself and others.
Be kind to yourself. Um, if or like how about let's just say it like this, like if you out there, first of all, thank you for listening in to this
Yes.
podcast. This is our first time. We are learning as we're going. Um, but I think that, if you are interested in learning more about centric behavioral health, I will leave links and phone call the number to call on the screen or somewhere around here. So we'll have like my editing self to put that there. Um, and I know that you do have your own platform. Would you like to plug yourself at this time?
Sure. I'm on Twitch as doc_Paula. And I want to say it's 87. If not, if you just type in doc_Paula, you'll see me pop up.
I'll put a linky
I do mental health
description.
Mondays.
We'll put like again, I'll be editing this, so I'll do like the funny like holding it up and have like the letters here, all that fun jazz of being
That's
a
awesome.
video editor. But yeah, everyone check out Paula's Twitch, you said? So you're on what times?
On Mondays, I'm on typically about 6 o'clock, and I'll do some type of mental health chat, or I'll read from the DSM, or I'll just play video games and just be open for questions for Mental Health Mondays, because Mondays suck.
Days they suck, but you know what? We get through them. It's Tuesday.
Yeah,
We made it.
that's right.
And I mean, that's awesome. I mean, just having even just like having an open chat with a therapist, I think would be great.
Mhm.
So you guys should totally check out Paula. And thank you so much for listening in to the Centric podcast. I'm hoping to get this out probably every other week, or at least once a month, just to kind of have like a topic every single time. But regardless, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day if you're listening in the morning, in the evening, or good night. Yeah, be kind to yourselves. I think that's like the biggest
Yes.
takeaway. Be kind to yourselves and to other people.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I think I'm gonna stop.